Career strategy. It's so important and yet so often overlooked by people who would work in an industry for 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years. So why is it important? Well, in my work as a recruiter, I have stepped into many companies. And one of the first things I do is build an understanding of how people progress within that company. Now, what I'm specifically going to talk about, though, is transitioning today. What I mean by transitioning, and that is when you started in one path and you want to make a change into another path. And by paths, I mean career paths. Let me give you an example of a typical progression of people within an organization, and you'll probably start to understand what I'm talking about. Here is a little picture I did to give an illustration. If someone starts at a company at this level, the salary is low, and they start on their first day, and then they end up settling on the level of roughly the job they applied for. So here they might have applied for an admin role. They start here and they peel off and they stay in an admin role, and they might become a senior administrator or something like that. Likewise here, this might be the technical level, and people peel off at that technical level and be a designer or an IT person. Next thing you have is the professional level here. So these people might be engineers, for example, and they start as a junior engineer and progress to becoming a senior engineer. And this one level here is the management level. This is a typical thing that happens within an organization. Now, transitioning is when someone is on this path here and then wants to make the move through to here. So let's take this example. Someone is working in admin and they see the people doing the IT, or let's say doing the computer animation or something, and they decide that's what they want to do. Now, what should they do if they want to move from there to there? Well, there are a few things that seem logical and a few things that might surprise you. There's a bit of a process if you want to make a transition. The first one, and this is really important, is to understand the pain of the company, or more importantly, the industry you're in. If you, for example, work in an engineering consultancy, the pain of that organization may be developing close relationships with whatever it is. You have to make it your mission to find these things out. How do you find things out? I have two suggestions. One is talk to the most senior person who's directly involved with this. Now, in an organization, that's typically somebody like a general manager, could possibly be a practice manager, or could be the owner. So directly asking someone who knows them to try and find out what the pains of that company are. Now, when I say pains, I mean pains, because most companies have pains in a number of directions. Now, there's no use looking at a pain that you can't meet. And so, for example, if you're not very good technically and one of their pains is their IT system, then that's not for you. You need to look and see what pains you can help them with and the ones that would suit you and give you an enjoyable position. So the next thing is to try and find out anybody who's made such a transition. And try and find out either from them or by someone who happens to know is how they made that transition. I've seen people make transitions for a number of reasons and get picked out. The client was targeting the nuclear industry, they'd worked in the nuclear industry, that was pretty easy. But in many cases, what actually happened is that person bettered themselves and made themselves known to the people who were making decisions, the managers and directors, and really let them know that they had potential and were interested in progressing up the ladder. Now, once you've chosen that and you understand what people do, what you have to do is you have to start to build your skills in that direction. And when you're doing that, and once you've done a bit, the next stage is to be seen to take an interest in the company and in solving some of those problems. So what do you do? Well, quite often companies will have a project and they might have an opportunity for someone to speak to a small group. That's a really good opportunity. If you've got good speaking skills, then do that. If not, you can write a report. You can create a report about an industry. It shows genuine interest in that company. So let's take, for example, the company is an engineering consultancy and they struggle with technology. Understand what that struggle means. Could it be their computer-aided design system? Could it be their accounting system? Could it be their social media system? There's nothing stopping you doing a mini project saying, here's what our competitors use, and presenting it to the right people. And by the right people, I mean the decision makers. I think the important thing to remember is, first of all, to be aware of where you are on that career path, what stratum you are on, and secondly is you have to be aware of your own capabilities and potential. Once you know those things, then the rest is just a process. And I would say at last is, if you do this within this company and you don't progress, that's the time to start looking outside that company and to the industry as a whole. And that's why it's important to understand what the progress and the career progress of people is within the industry, not just in your company. I hope this has been some help. I would seriously recommend that you start to look at what your situation is, and I look forward to helping you with more videos.